Have you ever wondered why God allowed those you trusted most to hurt you? What if those very wounds are the key to unlocking a higher purpose for your life? There are moments when you feel alone, abandoned, and every door seems to close before you. But what if that's not abandonment, but divine preparation for a grander journey? Do you believe that your enemies are not the cause of your downfall, but are, in fact, part of God's plan to elevate you to a new level? In life, there are times when we face immense pain, bitter betrayal, and cold rejection that make us question everything. We cry out to God, asking why He allowed this to happen, why He let them hurt us so deeply. But what if I told you that God wanted them to hurt you, not to destroy you, but to develop you? What if the very thing you thought would break you was actually designed to build you? Many of us are going through a painful season, questioning why God allowed certain people into our lives, why He let them wound us so deeply. Listen, God is not punishing you. He is positioning you. Every tear you've shed, every heartbreak you've endured, every knife that found its way into your back was not outside of His control. He saw it coming. He allowed it, and He's going to use it for His glory. God's ways are higher than ours. We see the hurt. He sees the healing. We feel the pain. He sees the promotion. We want to escape the suffering. He knows that through it, we will emerge stronger. The enemy thought he was taking you out, but all he did was push you closer to your purpose. So don't give up. Don't let the pain turn you bitter. Instead, let it push you deeper into God's presence. Because one day, you'll look back at this moment and say, it had to happen. If they hadn't hurt me, I wouldn't be who I am today. You didn't see it coming. You trusted them. You loved them. You thought they were there for you. And then one day, they turned their back on you. They walked away when you needed them most. They said things that cut you deeply, did things that left scars on your soul. And you sat there, broken, wondering why a loving God would allow this to happen. Listen to me. God saw it before you did. He knew they would betray you. He knew they would reject you. And He still allowed it, not because He delights in your suffering, but because He has a purpose greater than the pain you are seeing. Sometimes, God has to let others break your heart so He can step in and heal it Himself. Sometimes, He has to let others abandon you so you can learn that He will never leave you nor forsake you. Look at Jesus, one of His own disciples, the one He walked with, ate with, and loved, sold Him for 30 pieces of silver. Peter, one of His closest friends, even denied Him as He carried the cross, bruised and beaten. The very people He came to redeem mocked Him. But every rejection, every betrayal, every moment of pain led Him to the fulfillment of His divine purpose. If Jesus had to be betrayed to fulfill His destiny, why do we think we will be exempt from a similar process? The rejection you're facing right now is not random. It's by divine design. The people who hurt you were necessary for your story. If they hadn't turned their back on you, you'd still be in your comfort zone. If they hadn't walked away, you wouldn't be drawn closer to God. If they hadn't rejected you, you wouldn't realize that your worth doesn't come from people, but from Him. Stop looking at the people who left. Stop crying over the ones who betrayed you. Stop asking why they didn't love you the way you loved them. Instead, lift your head and thank God, because if they were meant to stay, they would have. If they were a part of your destiny, they wouldn't have been removed. They played their role, and now their season is over. Don't let their betrayal define you. Let it refine you. Don't let their rejection make you bitter. Let it make you better, because one day you'll see the whole picture. One day you'll understand why God allowed them to hurt you. And on that day, you won't be crying over what you lost. You'll be praising God for what He prepared you for. Some of us are still holding onto the pain, still replaying the betrayal, still wondering why they treated us that way. But have you ever thought that if they hadn't hurt you, you'd still be stuck in a place you were never meant to be? That if they hadn't walked away, you would have never moved forward? God had to let them hurt you, because without the pain, you would have never stepped into purpose. Look at Moses. He was raised in Pharaoh's palace, surrounded by luxury and comfort. But when he saw his people suffering, he acted in anger and ultimately had to flee for his life. That moment of rejection, being exiled from Egypt, was painful. It felt like failure. It felt like his life was over. But what Moses didn't know was that leaving Egypt wasn't his downfall, it was his calling. Because in the wilderness, God would meet him. In the wilderness, God would shape him. And in the wilderness, God would call him back, not as a prince of Egypt, but as a deliverer of his people. Some of you are crying over people who abandoned you, over situations that pushed you away. But what if God is using it to usher you into your next assignment? What if he knew that as long as you were comfortable, you would never step into your true calling? Think about it. If Joseph's brothers had never sold him, he would have never gotten to Egypt. If Potiphar's wife hadn't falsely accused him, he would have never been thrown into prison. And if he had never been in prison, he would have never met the man who would later introduce him to Pharaoh. Every painful step, every heartbreak, every injustice led him to his destiny. Some people had to reject you so you could get closer to God. Some relationships had to fail so you could step into your purpose. Some places had to become uncomfortable so you would finally move. Stop trying to go back to what God has freed you from. Stop holding onto people God has removed. Stop fighting the very thing that is pushing you into your destiny. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and say, if they hadn't hurt me, I wouldn't be here. If they hadn't betrayed me, I wouldn't be praying the way I am. If they hadn't left me, I wouldn't have discovered who I truly am in Christ. God didn't allow it to destroy you. He allowed it to guide you. The pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something greater. Let go. Move forward. Your destiny awaits. You pray for blessings. You pray for favor. But do you know what often comes with it? Opposition, attacks, people coming against you. And you wonder, God, why are they coming at me? Why am I facing so much opposition? But hear me today. Your enemies are not in control. They are not the reason for your downfall. In fact, they are a part of God's plan to elevate you higher. Some of you are facing battles that feel unfair. People are talking negatively about you. People are coming against you. Doors are closing. It feels like you're being attacked from every side. But could it be that God is using these very attacks to lift you higher? Could it be that your enemies are not here to destroy you, but to promote you? Joseph's brothers hated him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. They thought they were burying him, but in reality they were taking him to the palace. Years later, when famine struck, the very brothers who betrayed him had to come and bow before him, unaware that the one they cast aside was now the one holding the key to their survival. Jesus also faced enemies at every turn. Religious leaders plotted against him. Judas betrayed him. Pilate condemned him. The crowds chanted, "Crucify him." But without the cross, there would be no resurrection. Without the suffering, there would be no salvation. The very people who sought to destroy Jesus ultimately fulfilled God's greatest plan for humanity. So don't be afraid of your enemies. Don't try to fight with your own strength. Don't be discouraged when people come against you. Instead, start praising God, because if they're coming against you, it means you're going somewhere. If there's a Goliath in front of you, it means there's a kingdom waiting for you. If there's a Judas in your circle, it means there's a resurrection ahead. Your enemies are not your downfall. They are your preparation. Let them talk. Let them plot. Let them betray you. Because when God is for you, it doesn't matter who is against you. The very people who thought they were burying you are the ones actually lifting you up. God is using them to take you higher. Keep your eyes on Him. Your promotion is coming. Jesus was betrayed, falsely accused, and crucified. Yet, it was all ordained to fulfill God's will. Think about this. Jesus, the Son of God, the Savior of the world, was not exempt from betrayal. He was not exempt from suffering. He was falsely accused, beaten, and nailed to a cross, not because he did anything wrong, but because it was necessary for God's plan. If the innocent Son of God had to endure betrayal to fulfill his purpose, why do we think we will not experience the same? Judas walked with Jesus. He saw the miracles. He heard the teachings. He ate at the same table. Yet for 30 pieces of silver, he delivered Jesus to crucifixion. But Judas didn't realize that his betrayal wasn't destroying Jesus. It was setting up the greatest victory in history. The cross looked like the end, but it was just the beginning. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned into salvation for all who believe. Some of you are wondering why God allowed people close to you to hurt you. Why he let someone you trusted turn their back on you. But hear this, if Jesus needed a Judas to get to the cross, you may need a Judas to get to your purpose. That betrayal wasn't random. It was divine. The Pharisees thought they had one when they falsely accused him. The Roman soldiers thought they had the last word when they nailed him to the cross. The crowds thought they had silenced him when they mocked him in his agony. But 3 days later, the stone was rolled away, and Jesus walked out of that tomb with all power in his hand. What they thought was his defeat was actually his triumph. The same is true for you. The lies they've told about you, the pain they've inflicted, the scars they've left, it all feels like an attack, but God is turning it into an anointing. They may have pushed you down, but God is preparing to lift you up. They thought they were burying you, but they didn't realize that a seed has to be buried before it grows into something greater. So don't despise the betrayals. Don't let the false accusations faze you. Don't give up because people have turned their back on you. If they did it to Jesus, they'll do it to you too. But like Jesus, you will rise again. And when you do, the very people who thought they defeated you will have to watch as God fulfills his purpose in your life. The cross wasn't the end. It was the path to glory. And your suffering isn't the end. It's the preparation for something greater. Some doors only open after endurance, and some blessings only come through wounds. Nobody likes pain. Nobody likes suffering. When we go through difficulties, we pray for God to remove them, to take away the burden. But what if I told you that some doors are only going to open in your life because of what you've endured? That some of the greatest blessings you'll ever receive are only going to come through the wounds you've sustained. Some of you are carrying wounds from people who hurt you, from betrayals that cut deep, from seasons that almost broke you. And you keep asking God, why? Why did you let this happen? But what if that very wound is the key that's going to unlock your next level? What if the pain you've been through is the door to the purpose God has for you? Jesus was nailed to the cross, his body broken, his hands and feet wounded. But through those wounds, salvation came to the world. Thomas, one of his disciples, didn't believe that Jesus had risen until he saw the wounds in his hands. It was the scars, the marks of suffering, that proved the power of the resurrection. Your scars tell a story. The suffering you've endured was not in vain. There are doors God is preparing to open in your life, but they require you to go through the fire first. Just as gold is refined in the furnace, just as a diamond is formed under pressure, your pain is producing something far greater than you can see right now. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see that the suffering was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to prepare you. The very thing that wounded you is what God will use to bless you. The very thing that broke you is what he will use to build you. Don't despise your suffering. Don't curse your wounds, because through them God is about to open doors that no one can shut. Too many people believe that when they go through suffering, it must be because God is mad at them, that they did something wrong, that they're being punished. But let me tell you today, your pain is not God's punishment. It's his preparation. What you're going through is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to prepare you for something greater. Look at Job. He was a righteous man, yet he lost everything, his possessions, his health, his children. His friends told him he must have sinned, that God was punishing him. But God wasn't punishing Job. He was preparing him for a greater revelation of his power and faithfulness. And in the end, Job received double for everything he lost. Some of you are in a season of pain right now, and the enemy is whispering in your ear, God has abandoned you. God is punishing you. But hear this, if God was finished with you, he wouldn't be preparing you. The very fact that you're going through difficulty means God is still at work in your life. He is strengthening you. He is molding you. He is teaching you to trust him like never before. Jesus also endured suffering, not because he was being punished, but because he was being prepared. Before he stepped into his public ministry, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, 40 days of isolation, testing, preparation. And when he came out of that season, he walked in power. Your pain is not in vain. God is using it to make you stronger, to build endurance in you, to prepare you for what's next. And when you come out on the other side, you will see that what felt like suffering was actually shaping you for the destiny God has planned. So hold on, don't give up. This is not the end of your story. It's the preparation for your next chapter. When you go through pain, it can feel meaningless. The betrayal, the rejection, the heartbreak, it all seems like it can't produce anything good. But hear me, God does not waste suffering. He takes the very thing that was meant to break you and turns it into the very thing that gives you strength. Look at Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times. He wept bitterly, ashamed, broken, feeling like he had failed. But did God discard him? No. Instead, after the resurrection, Jesus restored Peter and used him to preach the first great revival, where thousands came to Christ. His failure could have disqualified him, but instead God used it to glorify his name. Paul had a thorn in his flesh, a constant struggle, and he begged God to remove it. But God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In other words, God didn't remove the suffering, he transformed it. He turned Paul's pain into power, making him one of the greatest apostles the world has ever known. And then there's Jesus. The cross was suffering. The nails, the thorns, the mockery. Everything about it was meant to bring shame and destruction. But God didn't waste that suffering. He transformed it. What was meant to be a symbol of defeat became the greatest symbol of triumph the world has ever seen. Some of you have been through things that you never thought you'd survive. You've carried pain that no one knows about. But let me tell you, God sees you. And he's not going to let that pain go to waste. What hurt you the most is what he will use to help others. The storm that almost swept you away is what will give you the strength to stand and declare, "I'm still here by the grace of God." Your testimony is being written even in your pain. What you thought was breaking you is actually building you. The suffering is not in vain. It's for the glory that is to come. So don't hide your scars. Don't be ashamed of your story. Because soon, the very thing that wounded you will become the very thing that helps others find healing. Your deepest pain is about to become your greatest testimony. And when you stand up and tell your story, people will no longer see the wounds. They will see the glory of God all over your life. You've been praying for God's will in your life. You've been asking him to bless you, to take you higher, to use you for his glory. But then people start leaving. Friends turn their backs on you. Relationships break apart. People you thought would always be there suddenly disappear. And you ask God, why? But hear me today, when God is ready to take you to the next level, he starts removing those who cannot go with you. Some people are only meant to be in your life for a season. Some relationships are holding you back more than you realize. Some connections are distractions disguised as friendships. And God, in his wisdom, knows that if they stayed, they will prevent you from reaching the destiny he has prepared for you. Look at Gideon. He started with an army of 32,000 men ready for battle. But God told him, you have too many. And God kept removing people until Gideon was left with just 300 soldiers. Why? Because if he had won with thousands, the people would have taken the credit. But when God dwindled his army down to almost nothing, it made it clear this victory belongs to God. Some of you are grieving over people who left. You're holding on to people God has removed. But what if their departure was part of God's plan? What if the very thing you're crying over is the very thing God used to set you free? Think about Abraham. God told him to go to a land that he would show him. But Abraham made a mistake. He took Lot with him. And as long as Lot was there was trouble, there was strife, there was confusion. But the moment Lot left, God spoke. The moment Lot was gone, the promise became clearer. Some of you haven't heard from God because you're still holding on to your lots. Jesus had thousands of followers, but only 12 disciples. And even among those 12, he had Peter, James, and John, his inner circle. When he went up the mountain for the transfiguration, he didn't take all 12. He only took 3. Why? Because not everyone is meant to go with you to your next level. Stop chasing after people God has removed. Stop trying to reopen doors God has closed. If they were meant to stay, they would have. If they left, it's because their role in your story is over. And that's okay. Because when God removes, he also replaces. When he takes something away, it's because he's making room for something greater. Don't let them go. Trust God's plan, the right people, the right opportunities, the right relationships. Everything you need for your next season will be divinely sent to you. You don't have to chase it. You just have to be ready for it. There are seasons in life where it feels like you're alone. Friends stop calling. People you once relied on disappear. You look around and feel like everyone else is moving forward while you're stuck in a quiet, waiting, isolated place. And you ask God, why am I alone? Why does it feel like no one understands what I'm going through? But let me tell you today, your isolation is not abandonment, it's preparation. Look at David. Before he fought Goliath, before he wore the crown, he was alone in the fields, tending sheep. No one saw him, no one applauded him. But it was in that isolation that he learned to fight lions and bears. It was in that solitude that he learned to trust God. His private battles prepared him for a public victory. And look at Jesus. Before he began his ministry, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, 40 days of isolation, testing, preparation. And when he came out of that season, he walked in power. Some of you are in a season of isolation right now, and the enemy is trying to make you believe that you've been forgotten, that no one sees you, that you have no purpose. But listen, God sees you, and this season is not wasted, it's necessary. He's removing the distractions, pulling you away from the noise so he can prepare you for what's coming. You see, when God is calling you higher, he often separates you first. He'll put you in a season where it's just you and him, because before he can use you publicly, he has to build you privately. Before he places you in your destiny, he has to strengthen your character. Before he opens doors, he has to make sure you're ready to walk through them. Don't despise the quiet season. Don't rush the process. Your isolation is not punishment, it's preparation. And when God is finished, when he has refined you, strengthened you, and filled you with his power, you will step into your destiny with a confidence that only comes from knowing that God himself prepared you for this moment. Hold on, be ready. Because when this season ends, you won't recognize the person you've become. You'll be stronger, wiser, and ready for the next level God has for you. Sometimes, the very people who try to destroy you are the ones God will use to promote you. You don't have to fight for your position, prove yourself, or seek revenge. God knows how to prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies. He knows how to take what was meant for evil and turn it into a testimony that even your foes will have to witness. Look at Joseph. His brothers hated him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. They thought they were burying him, but in reality they were taking him to the palace. Years later, when famine struck, the very brothers who betrayed him had to come and bow before him, unaware that the one they cast aside was now the one holding the key to their survival. Look at Daniel. His enemies set a trap for him to be thrown into the lion's den. They thought they had silenced him, but God shut the mouths of the lions and the next morning Daniel was brought out of the den safely, while his enemies were thrown into the very trap they set for him. And look at Jesus. Religious leaders plotted against him. Judas betrayed him. The crowds chanted, "Crucify him." They thought they had defeated him. They thought the cross was his end. But 3 days later, he rose in power, proving that what they meant for his destruction was actually the fulfillment of God's greatest plan. And now, the name of Jesus is exalted above every name. His enemies may have put him in a tomb, but his resurrection proclaimed his ascension. Some of you are surrounded by people who are trying to tear you down. They're telling lies about you. They're plotting against you. They're hoping to see you fail. But hear me, they don't have the last word. The very people who dismissed you will have to watch as God lifts you up. The very people who tried to bury you will witness your breakthrough. David said, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies," Psalm 23:5. That means your enemies are not a sign that you're losing. They're a sign that God is about to bless you. Because the only way they can see your table is if God allows them to stay and witness. So don't waste your time fighting battles that belong to God. Don't try to prove yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them plot. Let them think they've won. Because soon, God is going to elevate you. And when he does, even your enemies will have no choice but to see his hand all over your life. Stay strong. Stay focused. Your promotion is coming. There are wounds that cut so deep that you wonder if you'll ever heal. Some betrayals leave you so broken that you feel like you'll never recover. You've cried in the dark of night, asking God why he allowed you to go through so much. But hear this today. Your deepest pain is about to become your greatest testimony. The very thing that tried to destroy you is what God will use to set you free. Look at Paul. Before he became a great apostle, he was Saul, a persecutor of Christians, a man filled with hatred and violence. But on the road to Damascus, God struck him down, blinded him, and transformed his life. The very man who once inflicted suffering became a preacher of salvation. This past could have disqualified him, but instead God used it to glorify his name. Look at Hannah. She was barren, mocked, and ridiculed. She cried out to God in deep anguish, pouring out her soul. And in that place of pain, God heard her and granted her Samuel, a prophet who would anoint kings. Her suffering was not wasted. It was part of God's larger plan. And look at Jesus, the nails in his hands, the wounds in his side, the agony of the cross. It was suffering beyond imagination. But out of that pain came the greatest victory the world has ever known. His scars became the proof of his resurrection. His wounds became the testimony of redemption. Some of you have been through things that you never thought you'd survive. You've carried pain that no one knows about. But let me tell you, God sees you, and he's not going to let that pain go to waste. What hurt you the most is what he will use to help others. The storm that almost swept you away is what will give you the strength to stand tall and declare, "I'm still here by the grace of God." Your testimony is being written even in your pain. What you thought was breaking you is actually building you. The suffering is not in vain. It's for the glory that is to come. So don't hide your scars. Don't be ashamed of your story. Because soon, the very thing that wounded you will become the very thing that helps others find healing. Your greatest pain is about to become your greatest testimony. And when you stand up and tell your story, people will no longer see the wounds. They will see the glory of God all over your life. My friend, everything you have been through, every wound, every betrayal, every tear has not been wasted. You may not understand it now, but God has been working behind the scenes, using every bit of your suffering to shape you, refine you, and prepare you for something far greater than you can imagine. The people who hurt you, they were part of the plan. The pain you endured, it was necessary for your growth. The doors that closed, they were never meant for you. What looked like rejection was actually divine protection. What felt like suffering was actually the foundation for your elevation. Joseph's betrayal led to his breakthrough. Job's suffering led to his double portion. David's rejection led to his reign. And Jesus' crucifixion led to his resurrection. You are not the exception. Your pain has a purpose. So today, I challenge you. Stop looking at your wounds as signs of defeat. Start seeing them as proof that God's hand is on your life. Stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start declaring, God is using this for my good, because He is, and He will. One day, the very people who doubted you will see you walking in the blessings of God. The very ones who hurt you will watch as God lifts you up. And when you stand in the place He has prepared for you, you will look back and realize every bit of the pain was worth it. Stay strong, stay faithful, keep trusting, because your story is not over. And when God is finished, what was meant to break you will become the very thing that blesses you. Connect with Growth Mindset Mastery for more inspiring and life-changing messages. Subscribe to the channel to never miss a new video. Hit like. If you felt encouraged, share this video with someone you think needs to hear this message.